as a result of bushfire plus COVID, et cetera, et cetera. That might sit here as an immediate condition. What's emerging? We see some benefit. I'm sort of making it up, but we see some benefit in the budget in terms of some investment that's going to target our region or not. We didn't get investment. We're going to have to go looking for other support. But to have those conversations, and then without, again, having to be too perfect about it, just start to build a mapped view of the conditions that you're operating in. We convene again in about 3 weeks. So spending, I don't know, a couple of hours once or twice with colleagues to have that conversation. If you're operating as a sort of sole person, or if you're wearing multiple hats, tap in through Startup Shakeup, dare I say it, Elena. I hope, with others in that network, with others who are here today, with others who might have registered but haven't been able to attend, just to practice having the conversation. What we'll do when we reconvene is have a look at what people are seeing, start to create a bit of a shared view, but then get into, well, what does this mean in terms of opportunity and risk? So as you're having those conditions conversations, also be thinking, well, what am I seeing now in terms of opportunity? And it was said, Stephen, you said it quite clearly, the online stuff has created some advantage. Yeah. Being online is opportunity and it is risk. And we've got to be thoughtful about where we're going to focus our resources to make the most of the opportunities and the risks that we see. What we ultimately try to get people to do is, once you've got a really robust mapped view of conditions, is to then start going for some themes and patterns. So the themes are like an aggregate view of a number of conditions potentially across multiple scales. So there might be something there like legacy model holding our business back, right? But the overall pattern, as you start to sort the themes, is something maybe around future fitness or around value destruction in your network, or about what we could do to actively own the future, or whatever it is that you might see as your themes and patterns. So the idea is have those maps as the representation of complexity, but also to push to do the thinking to really understand conditions. But then, as I said before, it's picking the sort of constellations out of the stars to get clear on what are our key themes coming through, and then do those themes in any way aggregate to form a pattern that really starts to tell the story. These are just taken out of another context. I'm not saying this is what you should be looking for. It's just in one organization in particular is very clearly they're not future fit, that they work in a network and there's real destructive potential in that network in terms of, a couple of businesses go down and the whole network starts to fall apart. And there's enormous potential for them to own the future if they're thoughtful about some of the other conditions. So that's just an example. But what we're trying to do when it comes to getting people to make decisions and move quickly is ultimately you operate out of your patterns. That's what you keep the most focus on, right? So is there any information coming through that changes our view of the patterns that we're operating in? Are there any new patterns emerging that we have to take into account? So if you think about how this might fold into a strategy, that sort of sets the context and the narrative that people can very quickly align to. Here's our reality. We're not future fit. There's a real risk of value destruction through the networks that we operate in, and we've got real potential to own our future. That's the context for our strategy. Here's why we're prioritizing what we're prioritizing. So it's a way of refining back the information to really shape the narrative that you take forward. So in terms of some final thoughts, and then I'll throw up into some last questions from the group. Always a critical question is, where do you want to be, right? So the better you understand the conditions that you're operating in here and what's emerging over here, the easier it is to set that trajectory as to where you want to go. In the context of regional resilience, really be thinking about how do we light up the network, right? And what are we going to light the network up to do? How can we generate value as a system rather than in isolation, right? At the moment, we're all thinking university, vineyards, building and construction, et cetera, right? We're not necessarily thinking about whole systems value generation. We're thinking about our bit of the world. So what would start to change? if we think about what's the system of value generation across multiple organizations, industries, businesses, community hats, etc., that we could start to create for Benalla and the broader Northeast region, right? That's the way to think about it. And then think about, how do you light up the network? Who can you activate? Who can you poke to get them into action? And if we could each poke 2 people who poke 2 more, you create exponential change very quickly, right? And you can get change to happen much faster. So the next steps from here, do some work on that initial conditions analysis. Prepare to present back to this group in a couple of weeks. What are you seeing as some overall themes or patterns shaping your operating reality? And then I'll share a video via Jess, which gets into how do you use conditions to think about opportunity and risk, so you can start thinking that. And then always be in strategy and action. This is the critical bit, right? If in doing a conditions analysis, you go, bang, there's an opportunity, well, get into action, right? You don't have to fully resolve the plan. The opportunity might be gone. What's the experiment you can do to test it? What's the catalyst you can put into your network to start creating some energy and momentum? Sometimes it could be a phone call, you know? I'm seeing this as a possibility, and I think someone else might be a good partner in that possibility. Ring them up and say, hey, look, I've just done my conditions work and I'm seeing this. What do you reckon? Oh yeah, get into action. It's out of the old plan it, manage it, measure it step by step. This is into dynamic, let the system do the work for you. But you can't really know what to do if you haven't done the work around conditions. So I'm going to stop there. So I know we only have a minute or 2 left for some final comments or questions.
David, I'll make a quick comment. I'll do an invitation to everybody. Normally with a series of workshops, what you say is if you don't come to the first one, you can't come to the rest of them. What we've done with that first workshop that we had a few weeks ago is that's online through Startup Shakeup. This one will be too. And I actually think we should poke people in the networks around us, get them to help us do the system conditions, and then get them to come with us and carry on with the process so the group grows over time. And then that way we start lighting up the regional network. That's my invitation to everybody.
Absolutely. Other comments, questions? We're here. Reach out if you want some insight, some coaching, and I'll just leave you with just a little cautionary note. Remember that we all at some point would prefer to stick our heads in the sand and pretend that it's not going on, and there always, always, always are elephants in the room. You got to call them out when you're doing good conditions analysis, just as what they are. It's just a condition. So we always say, watch out for the elephants, because they can suck the oxygen out of the room pretty quickly if you don't deal with them. So with that, I think that finishes us pretty well right on 11 o'clock.
Fantastic, David.
Can I just say thank you to everyone? Some great feedback. So I've got some conditions noted down. I'll drop them into the maps. It doesn't have to be your view, but at least get you kick-started a bit more, and through Jess, we'll get that stuff circulated probably tomorrow, so just before the weekend, so you've got plenty of time before our next session.
And Adam has just said, I just got poked after the last one, and I'm glad to be here. Great stuff and of direct relevance, so get out and get poking, everyone.
And
yeah, all good. Thanks, Nina. That's great.
Absolutely.
Thank you, David. That was
everyone.
fantastic.
Right. See you soon. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.